absolutely amazing. But we'll get started on time. Let's actually get started right now. So again, thank you everyone for being here. Super grateful to be able to introduce you to two amazing women and financial experts to really break down the $2 trillion CARES Act that the US government has released for relief. And so how does this impact you? How does this impact your business, your employees, we're going to go through, we're going to break it down. I'm going to introduce you guys in a second, but I just want to give you guys a really quick overview of what we're going to cover and then how the flow is going to go for today. So here's what we're going to cover on the training, and Shannon and Tatiana have a presentation that they're going to go through, but we're going to talk about the CARES Act. They're going to talk about the CARES Act and how it impacts your business. The top 3 ways you can get funding right now in your business. Is the CARES Act a grant or a loan? Okay, and what exactly is going to be forgiven? How does the CARES Act help with your employees and payroll? What about coverage for rent, utilities, and other operating expenses? And how about unemployment and how does layoffs work? And what if employees have already filed? And then what you can do now to prepare to apply for the grants or loans, because this is all so new. And today is March 31st, and we will, and I just spoke with Shannon right before we were starting, this is all so new. So new things are going to come to light as the next couple of weeks go by. And then we'll keep providing you with updated information on what you need to know for you and your business and your team. So Shannon and Tatiana, thank you so much for stepping up and helping and just being so gracious to come on and be like, how can I help? What can I do? How can I support your tribe and your community? And Shannon and I go back a couple of years now, and they're both profit first experts, which is absolutely amazing. And a lot of my clients have worked with Shannon because she specializes in fitness business ownership and helps them with their books, set up the profit first system. And so she's done a bunch of trainings. Hey, Tom, I know she works with a bunch of you guys. So she's done quite a few trainings for my mastermind groups, for my coaching groups, and I trust her 110%. And then when she was talking about, Tatiana, I hope I don't butcher your last name. Is it
Sawyer?
Sawyer. Okay, so sorry. She was like, yes, Tatiana's amazing with this, and you definitely know what's going on. So you guys have teamed up to help, share some really good content about the CARES Act and how it impacts your business. So Shannon Simmons has owned NetBooks Accounting for almost 12 years and a profit first professional focused on serving fitness and wellness businesses for the last 5 years. Absolutely amazing woman and human being, and I trust her unconditionally. And then Tatiana is a CEO and founder of Linza Advisors and is a CPA and tax expert. In the last 15 years, she has worked primarily with small business and small business owners focused on providing bookkeeping, accounting, tax filing, and most importantly, proactive tax planning support. She's Profit First professional, and price psychology consultant. And she has helped businesses become more profitable, stabilize their cash flow, and proactively reduce taxes. She wrote a book, Dream Bold, Start Smart, which will be released, oh my gosh, yay, March 2021. Congratulations, that's so exciting. And is available for pre-order next week. Tatiana's launching educational courses this year to provide clarity and confidence to business owners in their back office, all things accounting and taxes. So that is amazing. And mom of 2 young kids, lives in New York. Oh my gosh, how are things going in New York right now? She lives in what's that?
We're living in the suburb, and we basically don't leave the house,
Yes, I see. We see on the news. All of our news is New York, actually, down here in Florida, which is crazy. But yeah. Oh, you love Latin ballroom dancing? Yep. This is fantastic. So thank you guys. And Shannon, I didn't do you justice. Will you introduce yourself a little bit more thoroughly and maybe something fun about you before we dive into
Sure. Yeah, I was just trying to keep it really short and sweet. We also do bookkeeping, and that's our main focus, bookkeeping and profit first coaching at NetBooks Accounting Services, all for the fitness industry. Let's see, I'm in Northern Indiana, so we like to say, we're in the middle of the country and everything takes longer to get to us. Sometimes that's good and sometimes it's bad. I'm kind of grateful right now, right? So the trends take a while and the pandemics apparently. So I don't know, something fun about me. I also have two not so young kids, 13 and 14. I think they're still in bed and so we're safe. But it's been interesting working from home with them. I'm used to working from home, but with them is different. So yeah, that's enough about me, I think, right now.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being on and donating your time and your expertise to helping everybody. So we'll dive right in. This is going to be pure content. Get your pens out. We'll have contact information and links to certain resources and whatnot. And I'll be posting all of this on the coronavirus resource page. So yeah, you'll have access, and I'll post the recording as well in there in case you have to jump off or you want to re-listen to something. But I'll let you screen share, get the presentation flowing, and then we'll take questions at the end. We do have a list of some questions after if we don't get to them in the presentation. And then just start putting them in the chat, you guys, and I'm going to go through them one by one, and we'll be on until all your questions are answered. Shannon, do you have a specific time limit that you have? I know Tatiana, you need to be out by 12.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay, we will stay on until you guys have all your questions answered. So let's get the party started.
Awesome. So just a little bit more about how Tatiana and I have really quickly put this together. Tatiana did this webinar and I attended it yesterday at 1 o'clock. And then I said, hey, you want to come help me do this for another group of people? Because as Alicia said, I don't know, I'm not a CPA, I used to be. And so I don't keep up with all of it as much as I could or should. I just don't have all of the in routes, but Tatiana does. And so together, that's how we're going to do this. I'm going to give you some content. She's going to give you some stories of how this is actually playing out for her clients and what she's seen so far. Because I think that's the best way. And I will just say some housekeeping stuff right at the very beginning. As Alicia and I were talking beforehand, this is all brand new, right? It was actually passed Friday at 5. So 900 pages of law. We're still digesting it. And with any law, the lawmakers create it. And then it has to go into the groundwork. And people have to figure out what that actually means and how it's actually going to be implemented. So we're still in that phase of this. We don't have all the answers. That's just kind of my blanket statement at the beginning. We're going to do what we can to give you the answers, but please accept it as our honest truth. Like, I want to do everything I can to help you, but if I don't know, I'm not going to give you bad advice either. So just putting that out there. Also, I just want you guys to be aware, as sad as it is, there are people out there that are trying to take advantage of this already. The IRS will not call you. The SBA will not call you unless it's a follow-up from a loan that you've already applied for, right? So don't start giving out information. People are trying to get your information through scams already. So just be aware of that. As Alicia said, we'll do Q&A at the end, but put them in the comments as we go. And then anytime we talk about taxes, I just have to give a disclaimer. We are not here giving tax advice or legal advice. This is just information. Please consult your accountant about your specific situation. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump in. I wanted to, I'm really just piggybacking 100% off what Tatiana did yesterday, but this also came from Mike Michalowicz, who wrote Profit First. So we both have the privilege of working directly with him. And he created this, what he calls crisis response behavior graph. And, 2 weeks ago when your businesses were closed, a lot of you were in shock mode. And some of you then went into desperation mode pretty quickly. Some of you, I don't know that anybody's really still in shock mode, but maybe you still are. Either way, those two periods of time can be short or long. They're downward focused though. And so we want to get you into that evaluation phase as soon as we can, because when you're in downward focus, you don't make good decisions either. And so we want you to get into that evaluation phase so that you at least are in a flat phase, if not starting to look up, and at least making better decisions. So that's one of the things, just giving you information helps you get into that evaluation phase. Okay, so what does this stimulus mean for small businesses? And I just want to say, Tatiana, if you want to interrupt me at any point, just go ahead and do it, because we're in this together. So there are several options available. We've heard these words: loans, loan grants, and emergency grants. We're going to talk more about each one of those situations. There are options if you're self-employed, and I know this is one of the reasons I love working with Fit Pros. You all have huge hearts, and you really want to take care of your employees and your members first. And that's great. There are options for those people, and we're going to talk about those too. So The first thing we want to talk about is the SBA disaster assistance. It's also EIDL, and this is the big loan piece, right? So this is the current information as of yesterday. I don't think much has changed, but I know there's one piece that you can do online now. So you do need to apply directly on the SBA site. That is now online, and supposedly it's been expedited and it's going faster. You can get up to $2 million in working capital. 10,000 of that can be available immediately. And that's the piece that could become a grant, right? You're gonna apply for it as if it's a loan, but it could become a grant if you don't get the loan. So the whole piece of this loan is it has to be underwritten. So there is an application process. $10,000 can be funded pretty quickly. The rest of that 2 million, we're not sure how long that's going to take. It has to go through underwriting.
Well, let me jump in here for a second. So it's up to 2 million, but you will have to show that you're profitable. So it's a true underwriting process. I mean, I wrote that it takes 3 to 6 hours filling out forms. That's probably what it would take me. But a client of mine just did an application last week. It took her and her team a combined time of probably about 25 hours total. So you need to submit the financials, you need to submit projections for the next 2 years. It is a complicated process. So just be aware of that. And I want to set your expectations right. So it is an underwriting process. It is an actual loan.
The first part to get $10,000 seems pretty quick. And that I feel like is a misnomer for a lot of people. Like you can go online and apply for that in about 5 or 10 minutes is what people are telling me it's taking. But then to get the rest of it is going to be a process. And so, yeah, Tatiana's exactly right. Like go in eyes wide open. This is not, they're not going to just dump $2 million in your lap.
That's right.
It's going to be underwritten. Along with that, you're probably going to have to put up some collateral and or a personal guarantee. To me, that's a huge deal. You want to be 100% sure that that's what you want. This is a loan. It's going to have to be repaid back. Yes, low interest. We're hearing 4%. It's still a loan. Make sure that that's what you want to have in your business, and your business can support that.
Shannon, I'm going to jump in just to kind of make a point. If you were looking for a loan anyway, this is a good opportunity for you to get a loan with a low rate. The interest actually for this specific loan, $375 for businesses. Commercial lending is at least 6 to 7%. So getting a loan that you would need otherwise, or consolidating loans that you already have into this one, would be a great step for you if that's what you need in your business.
Part of that application process also is to be very specific about how you're going to use the funds. So you can say refinancing. I'm seeing mixed reviews of what they're going to do with that, but you can always try, right? It doesn't hurt. If you have other ways that you want to use the funds going forward, be sure to put all of that in there so that they have a lot of things to base your application on.
Can I jump in and ask a question? So are there basically 2 parts to the application, one for the initial 10,000, and then there's a second, like either a follow-up or an additional application to, apply for up to 2 million? Is that how it works?
That's what I'm seeing.
I saw the email blasts with that information, but on the SBA website, I only saw the main application, and then you can check off the box, I want the emergency grant as part of the application, and that's kind of what I saw.
Got it. So the emergency grant that's the 10,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
What I've heard too is even on the SBA website, it doesn't even give you an option to tell how much you're applying for. So to me, that indicates you're gonna have to have a follow-up conversation with somebody or a follow-up form to at least indicate how much you want, because you don't have to take $2 million. I would say at least 2 pieces. Okay, so that's the SBA disaster assistance. Tatiana, anything else that you wanted to add in there?
I think you've covered it all. I'm actually looking on their website, so if I find the application for the EIDL, that's what it's called, I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, can I jump in really fast too? I know there's big accounting firms that are starting to reach out to fitness professionals and obviously probably small business owners across the country, offering to file the paperwork for over $2,000 for you because it takes so long. Is that valuable to people? Is that a ripoff? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I have an opinion. Well, I have an opinion about everything, but I have an opinion about this. So the reason that I took a different approach, I'm a small firm, but I took a different approach. I thought, you know what? Everybody started texting me questions about the loans and how do I get my money and what do I do? And I have over 150 clients. So I realized, I just counted, if I were to talk to every single client for 30 minutes to explain to them what this loan is, that would be 75 hours. That's 2 weeks of just talking on the phone. So what I decided to do, and there was some pushback from the clients, but I had to explain, listen, I'm going to be sending you email blasts with the updates as I get them. I launched a webinar yesterday for business owners just to share the information because there's a lot of misinformation. Large accounting firms, what they're doing also is they're overwhelming business owners like you with stuff that's not relevant to you. The law had provisions that are up that make sense to me as an accountant, but they don't make sense to you at all. Like the NOL or whatever, stuff that's irrelevant for you. So what I decided to do is to be proactive. I jumped ahead of the curve. I said, this is how it's going to go. I encourage you to apply on your own because there's no way in hell that I can apply for 150 client loans. Even if I could charge any fees, first of all, it's not that fair because you're taking advantage of people who are in distress. And second, this is something that a business owner will have to be involved anyway, because you have to explain how the money will be spent. I cannot create that wording for you. I cannot say, oh, you should say this and that. You will have to also explain your projections for the next 2 years. How are you going to hire more people? Are you going to buy more assets? What are you going to do with the money? So that's why, I mean, large accounting firms, they are trying to be helpful and make money along the way, but I took a very different position, if that makes sense.
I love it. And I appreciate that. And everybody on this call appreciates that too, because one of the things, like, we just don't want to get taken advantage of on something we don't know about. And that's one of the reasons I want to bring you guys on, because I knew you have everybody's best interest at heart. So, okay. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. So let's talk about what they're calling PPP, or the Paycheck Protection Plan. It's just easier to say PPP. So that's what I mean when I say PPP. That's the Payroll Protection Program. That's what I feel like that's the other option that everybody's been talking about. So this one is like, you don't apply through the SBA. So I have a chart on the next slide, I think, yeah, that puts these two things side by side. So it makes it really pretty. I wanted to explain them all one at a time so you understand, and then you can go through the chart together. But the last one you have to apply on the SBA website. This one you have to apply through your bank or a commercial bank. And I'm going to encourage you to go to your bank, and hopefully you have a really good relationship there and they can help you walk through this process. But they don't know about this process yet either. That's kind of the catch-22 that we're all in right now. It was just released Friday, right? So yeah. If you call your local teller is going to be, I mean, I heard it yesterday. They're like, we don't know anything about it. Your commercial banker person will probably know something about it. It's coming down the chain, but it's going to take a little bit of time. So.
Can I jump in here really quick? I'm seeing, because I have a lot of relationships with banks, I'm seeing some of the banks kind of being a little proactive in a sense that they're sending emails to their business clients saying, we don't have the details yet for this program, but here's something that you may want to collect and to be prepared to apply for this PPP loan. And right now it's all a speculation, so just, take it with a grain of salt. But I do want to encourage all of you to reach out to your bankers, business bankers, and say, I know that you're overwhelmed. I know that you don't know the details yet, but could I be please put on the email list so that when you do know, I also know as soon as you do.
Yeah,
excellent.
So this also applies for small businesses. This also applies for sole proprietors and independent contractors. Now, you do have to have been in business on February 15th of 2020. So that was like a month and a half ago, right? It's not like you have to have been in business for any length of time really, but you couldn't have started like March 1st or March 10th and all of a sudden be wanting this protection program. So a little bit of time that you have to have been in business. It is up to $10 million that you can apply for. Again, you don't have to apply for the whole thing, just like with the SBA loan.
There is, sorry, Shannon, there is a limit. There's a calculation of the maximum amount that you can apply for. So just be aware of that. It's not, you're not choosing the amount. It's based on your past year of some expenses that are listed.
Right, actually, it's right there, like, I don't know, the fourth one from the bottom. So to determine that amount, you're gonna take your average monthly payroll cost over the last year. So you have a little bit of choice in when, if I understand it right. You can do February 15th to February 15th, February 15, 19 to February 15, 20, or is it March
No,
to March?
so it's, if you're applying today, you look back 12 months from today.
From today, from when you apply, okay. So you'd be looking at April 1st to March 31st today, and you take those 12 months, add up all of your payroll expenses. Your payroll expenses are your salaries, your commissions, any group health or retirement benefits that you pay to your employees. So it does not include payroll taxes. The employer share of payroll taxes does not get included in that payroll expense. If you have people living outside the US that are working for you, they don't get included in that calculation. And then sick leave wages don't get included in that calculation. So those are the things that do and don't. You add all of those up for the last 12 months, divide by 12. That's your average monthly payroll cost. You multiply by that by 2.5 times, 250% is what you'll see those numbers kind of interchanged. It is up to a limit of 100,000 per employee. I don't feel like that applies too much to fitness businesses, so I'm kind of leaving that out. But and that's what you can apply for. That's the limit of the amount that you can apply for, that 2.5 times your average monthly payroll cost.
So I can give an example of this, if you don't mind, Shannon. So I have a client who pays about $1.2 million. Actually, it's a little more, but for rounding purposes, I'm going to use a round number. They pay about $1.2 million of salaries a year, plus some health insurance. There are a couple of people who make over $100,000. So the way we look, I would calculate, and I did this fairly quickly yesterday. It took me 5 minutes to do it. I looked at the total amount that was paid in wages, subtracted the amount that's over $100,000 per employee, and divided by 12. And that was my average monthly amount times 2.5. That was the maximum amount of this loan that you can get.
And that's something that you all can be doing right now. Because Tatiana and I are bookkeepers, we're going to say if you have good bookkeeping, it should be a 5-minute calculation. If not, you can really be in that process right now of getting your books up to date so that you can make that calculation really quick, because you're going to need it when you apply for the loan, once that becomes available. A couple other, I think, perks of this loan: there's no collateral required and no personal guarantee. That's a big deal. It's a much better program for that reason than the SBA loan, because you don't have to guarantee it. Go ahead.
I'm gonna jump in really quick. So just so that you guys are aware, the SBA loans have always been there. The SBA disaster assistance loans have always been there. This PPP loan was created on Friday. So it's fairly new, which is why there are not a lot of details and applications and all of that. But SBA loan has been there forever. It's just because it's now declared a national disaster, that's why you can apply. Otherwise, SBA lends mostly to, like minority-owned businesses or women-owned businesses at preferential rates.
Anything else that you wanted to say on the PPP?
I wanted to, I could share the comparative, kind of like my opinion in terms of like what's better, what's worse, unless you wanted to talk about that.
Go ahead.
So in my opinion, and this is what I've been sharing with my clients, there are a couple of clients who would love to consolidate their other loans because commercial loans are obviously a much higher rate. So for them, SBA loan is a better option because they would be limited to like 150,000, for example, on the PPP loan. However, there is some information floating around that you can do both. I don't necessarily subscribe to that because I've seen wording in the US Chamber of Commerce analysis that you cannot apply for the same loan. Well, you cannot apply for 2 loans with the same purpose and the same reason. So to me, I understand it as if I'm applying for the SBA loan because of the disaster, because of the financial effects that the disaster is having on my business, and then I'm applying for a paycheck protection program for the same reason, to me, that's the same exact reason. Is there a way to go around it? Possibly, but right now it's an unknown. So just be aware of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I guess we didn't also talk about the forgiveness piece of this. So if you use these funds, this is a big piece of it really. If you use these funds to pay payroll over an 8-week period after you get after you're approved, right? Then it can be forgiven. That amount that you use for payroll, utilities, rent, those are the big ones. Mortgage or interest on your mortgage too, not the principal on the mortgage, but the interest on the mortgage. That amount can be forgiven.
Can I ask a quick question? So from my understanding, you apply for the PPP, you get 8 weeks. Is that all they give you, 8 weeks or whatever you're applying for?
At this point, they give you 8 weeks.
Okay, so they give you the 8 weeks and then you're paying it off as a loan monthly, and then maybe later this year, November, December next year, then they reimburse you, or they just forgive everything, or are you still out the loan payment? How does that work?
So I can talk about this. So let's say you apply today. I'm going to use an example. Let's say you apply today for this loan. In the next 8 weeks is your test time for your business, which makes sense. So let's say you get the money in a week. In the next 8 weeks, you will pay your people, you will pay your rent and your utilities. Keep good records of those expenses. So if you're running payroll, keep records of what you've paid in that 8-week period. Also keep canceled checks for the rent. Now, let's say you got a loan, PPP loan for $100,000, and in 8 weeks you've spent $80,000 on rent, payroll, and utilities. The 80, you will apply for forgiveness. You will provide proof that will be forgiven. The 20 converts into a loan, a 10-year loan with a 4%.
Okay, that makes sense.
Do you know, Tatiana,
and
repayments will start on the loans next month?
I would say so. And someone just asked, it's a relevant question in the chat. David is asking, does payroll include independent contractors? Yes, if they're in the United States. So I have a client who has a Philippines team. Those contractors obviously are not included. And the term independent contractor, sorry, it's just something that kind of has been on my mind. I would count, and there's no guidance on the specific wording of what an independent contractor means, but just because it makes sense, I would say that anyone who works under their own name would count as an independent contractor, as opposed to an LLC, for example, because that LLC is already considered a business. When you have a workers' compensation audit, the LLCs don't count as your independent contractor. So I would apply the same logic to this. So only people who work for you under their own name.
Because, and the other thinking behind that is if they're an LLC, they can apply for this protection, this program.
That's correct.
So they don't need you to apply for them. And then they're on the hook for the loan part of it.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
We're going to save questions till the end. If you want to just put it in the chat, that would be perfect. And then just so clarification, Tatiana, based on what you said before, if they want to like your recommendation is if they want to consolidate loans to go with the disaster relief is their best option. But if they're trying to float payroll, pay rent, pay utilities, that they should probably be applying for the PPP.
That's my opinion, correct? Because, you know, like my clients are all great people. They all care about their employees. So a lot of them don't want to lay people off, and PPP loan would provide a great protection for that.
Got it.
Now, other clients don't have a lot of employees and they can afford to pay them, but they have other loans that are at much higher rates. This would be the time to take advantage of the SBA loan to get all of it consolidated and with a very low interest rate.
Got it.
I just want to add in here too, Alicia. I did tune in and watch your webinar last week with Amy about leases and rent. And this is another place where having conversations with your landlords and your employees as early as you can I have a friend who owns a yoga studio. I have another friend who is a yoga teacher. She does that as a hobby for my friend who owns the business, right? She is not concerned about her payroll right now. Their main source of income for my friend who just teaches is her husband, who is an ICU doctor, right? So she's like, please don't pay me over the next 8 weeks. Like, she doesn't want to put that burden on her studio owner. So I would encourage you to have these conversations with your employees. How many of them are depending on this? You probably know already who's depending on it and who's not. But if you don't need to take out a loan or go into this program for somebody who doesn't make a lot of money through you and doesn't need the payroll, don't do it. Now, if you need them when we reopen and however long that is, if you really need them and that means you have to keep them on full payroll right now, then apply for this program. So just be open and having those communications with not only your landlord, but also your employees.
Yep, I agree.
Okay. Just because I see it here on the screen, if you have already laid off people, you can still apply and you can rehire them as well. So that's important because I know a lot of you made decisions before this came out. It was a long time, it felt like, before this came out. So don't feel like you're stuck and you can't rehire them. You can bring them back on and pay them for those 8 weeks, and you would not be, you wouldn't have anything held against you for that. Put them right back where they were.
Got it.
Okay. So this is the sheet, and like I said, it's pretty tiny on the screen, so I just put it in here so that you guys can, it lists things out side by side for the 2 loans that we just talked about, the 2 programs, not loans, sorry, that we just talked about. So the PPP protection program is on the left-hand side, and then the EIDL disaster loan is on the right-hand side. It's in the slides, you'll be able to download those. It's also on some links I'm going to show you at the end where you can go and see it big so that you can determine kind of what's best for you, see the differences, and what's going to work and what's not going to work.
Amazing.
I'm going to
That's
fly
awesome.
through that.
Yes.
It's really hard to read. Okay, so self-employment options. So as a self-employed person, you are now eligible for unemployment up to $600 a week. They've greatly reduced the restrictions on self-employment. So, go ahead and apply. Like, it used to be that business owners couldn't really get it, but because they've made this a disaster, a lot of states have opened that up, and now the federal government has opened that up as well. They've also extended the period, so it's now 13 weeks, I believe. And it used to be like you had to show up for meetings once a week, and you had to prove that you were applying for jobs. Those things are gone. They've really relaxed that now because of so many people being in this situation and wanting to help business owners. So that's number one thing that you can do as a self-employed person. You are also able to apply for the PPP and the SBA loans. So those apply to all of you, no matter whether you're self-employed or business owner. If you have more employees, if you have employees, we're going to get to that here in a minute. If you happen to have a home office, some of our, I know Tatiana and I both have clients who have home offices. The PPP loan will cover rent, but this is not personal rent. So if you are paying rent for, like, let's say your home office, you're leasing that from somebody, you want to make 2 separate rent checks, one for your home office from your business that you can now put into the PPP program, and then one for the other portion of your home where you live, because that does not get to be rolled into the PPP program. Hopefully that's clear. And then these stimulus. Oh, go ahead, Tatiana.
Shannon, sorry, I'm going to just explain this. So typically, this portion of your taxes is highly scrutinized by the IRS when you claim your home expenses and etc. But especially in terms of the size of the office, it being strictly business and all of that. So what I recommend to some folks who have a large percentage of their personal rent as office, which some of them do. I have clients who operate sewing machines in their 2/3 of their house. That level of expense would catch the IRS's attention. So what I have them do is, if they rent the property, I would have them pay a portion of the rent with a business check, so that it doesn't become kind of I'm taking a share of the expense. I'm actually paying that share from the business. So then for this loan, you can later give them the canceled checks and say, this is the rent I've paid.
Exactly.
that make sense? I hope it makes sense.
Yep. Yeah, I think so. Okay. And then the last thing for self-employed people here is that we should also be getting those stimulus checks that they have as part of, it's a separate part of the package, right? It's not for business owners, it's really for everybody. As long as you meet the qualifications with the income thresholds, there's nothing you can do to get that faster. And so just be patient. I know it's really hard. I know we all really want our money, but calling anybody is not going to help. And so we're just going to have to sit back and wait on that one.
The reason everybody that I've put this on there is because yes, we have doctors, we have nurses who are in the front lines of this epidemic, but accountants are also kind of important. And what I wanted to encourage is to get this out there so that there's nothing you can do, there's nothing your accountant can do, well, almost nothing. And please be gentle to your accountants, because we get 300 phone calls during tax season. The extension didn't help me at all, because I'm in New York, so I'm actually more than everybody worried about getting sick, getting my family sick. If I have 2 children, so if someone gets sick, I have to spend time in the hospital, God forbid. I want to file everybody before anyone gets sick, because who knows what can happen to me or to anyone in my family. So the extension didn't really help us. So we are still in the working mode. So just be gentle to us, please.
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, that's what I've, across the board, every accountant I've talked to is like, I still want to get everybody filed by April 15th, if at all possible. So, just be considerate and help them get that done. Just because it's filed doesn't mean you have to pay. If you owe money, you can still wait to pay, but get it filed. That way it's just done and over with. And there's a lot of reasons for that. My Profit First personality here wants to come out and say, if you know what you owe, then we have time to get that all together for you. So the earlier you know how much you owe, the better.
Not only that, it'll help make sure your books are completely up to date so that you can file for these loans.
Yes. Yeah. There's so many reasons.
So I am actually strategic with some of my clients. Some of them have income in 2019 that doesn't qualify them for the stimulus, but 2018 does. So I'm holding some of the tax returns, even though they're completely done, I'm holding them back so that they can get their stimulus, and then I'll file 2019.
Yeah. But you have to have it all done and ready to know whether you're going to file or not.
That's right.
I hope you guys heard that. Can you repeat that? Because that's really big.
And this, I'm giving you permission to bother your accountant about this. Your 2019 taxes have to be prepared, almost ready to file. But usually all professional software that we use provides you with a comparative 2018 to 2019 income. And if your 2019 income does not qualify you for the stimulus check, hold it until you get the check and then file 2019. If your 2018 income qualifies you for that check.
Thank you for sharing that.
Which we hope happens, right? 2019, we would love to be.
We like to see growth every year. So depending on what phase you're in your business, if you qualify in 2018, but you wouldn't in 2019, wait to file.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So what about your employees? What can you do for your employees? Because this is huge for a lot of you, I know. So if they get sick, meaning they have COVID-19, you are required to pay them for sick pay. That is their normal 2-week salary up to $511 per day. So for most of you, that's going to be up to their 2 weeks full salary. Okay. And then you get to claim 100% of that credit on your payroll tax return. So your payroll tax returns, those are your quarterly tax returns. Those are the ones that everybody says, people call me and say, are you going to take care of my quarterly taxes? This is what you usually mean. Your 941. So today's March 31st. If you have somebody who is sick right now, last week, because you paid that in March, you would get to claim that credit when you file your first quarter tax return, which could be done as early as April 1st, really. You can push that and get it done really quick. So you could, and that is refundable. So you could get that as a refund and be reimbursed for that. If you have somebody who's sick this week, you're going to pay them in April. You don't actually get to claim that benefit until the end of June, file it in July. So it's just a timing thing, whether you get to take that credit now or if you have to wait 3 months, but you do have to pay it, and then that's how you would do it. And the biggest thing I can say here is just, again, communication is huge for me. And in this whole process, be in contact with your payroll provider if somebody is sick, because you want to make sure that it is documented as sick pay on their pay stub so that you can get that reimbursement and that credit on your payroll tax return.
I want to jump in here for a second. So this is required. So if someone gets sick with COVID, or if their family gets sick with COVID, sometimes they may or may not know, but the doctor may say you're quarantined for 2 weeks. That qualifies that time for the sick pay coverage, and you are required to provide that coverage. So you're required to pay them their full salary for 10 business days with the limits. So 511 if it's the employee, 200 per day if it's someone in their family. But I do recommend clients to keep doctor's note or some sort of a log or a list of who got sick when, so that you can claim the full credit.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tatiana, is this yesterday where you talked about being sure that you're in compliance with discrimination too, as far as how much you're going to pay for different people and different things, or was that a different slide?
This was for the section 139 that we'll talk in a little bit. Yeah.
So the other thing there is something called an employee retention credit. It's really teeny tiny, and that's the 6.2% that you can get reimbursed over the next 2 years. It seems to me like it's really small and it's a long time. So I'm recommending, if you need help with your payroll, you do the PPP and don't even worry about the employee retention credit. If we need to talk about it later, we can always come back to that as well.
Can I ask a really quick question, kind of related? This applies to the PPP full-time and part-time, correct? And 1099s as long as they live in the United States, and owner's salary. What about owner's draw? No.
So someone already asked that asked that question in the chat, and I responded. There is no guidance yet in terms of the draw. My position, and so accounting is a little bit of educated guesses a lot of times. So my educated guess is that for Schedule C, so for single member LLCs or just sole proprietors, most likely they will be able to claim draw as salary, because it's a reasonable assumption that you pay, as a self-employed, you pay FICA tax, so Social Security and Medicare. So to me, that's already 100% wages. So I would claim that's reasonable to assume, and that's reasonable to count that. But right now, there is no technical interpretation out on that yet.
Okay.
And as a Schedule C, you're not allowed to be on payroll. So it makes sense that that is your payroll. That's your only wage.
That's right.
However, as an S Corp owner, you are supposed to be on payroll. And so that's where we're saying you better be on payroll and paying yourself that reasonable salary. That's what's going to be deducted. Your draws probably are not for an S Corp. Again, still waiting.
And there was, sorry about that. Just an idea came to me. So there is a sort of a backdoor that I would recommend in terms of, if you are an S Corp owner, if you want to raise the amount of the PPP loan that you're eligible for, you can run a paper payroll. So give yourself a paper check, never cash it, destroy it, pay taxes on, let's say, a bonus amount for yourself, and increase your average payroll for the last 12 months. I mean, is it ethical? I would say it's borderline, but we are all in this together. So I would say that I would be okay with my clients doing that.
So basically they'd wait a month to file, they'd write themselves a paycheck that's larger than normal, and then that would increase their monthly average payroll for themselves, so they can take out more in a loan.
Yep.
Would you even have to wait a month to file? You could do that today. It'd be March 31st.
You could do it today.
Yeah, it is the 31st. That's a good timing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Exactly.
Okay.
And it's 12 months from when you apply for the loan. So nothing to say you couldn't write it on the 4th and apply April 5th, 2020 to April 4th, 2020.
Got it. And thoughts on applying for this, like if you really need the loan. This shouldn't just be considered free money, right? This is if you actually need the help in your business, the government is providing that assistance. So
in my opinion, this is after you've talked to your landlord and you know exactly how much you're going to have to pay, and you've gotten everything else deferred as much as you can, and you've talked to all your employees about how much they really need. And
Yeah, I really want
the loan amount. This is not free for all money.
Yeah, look, there's consequences on the other side of this. If everybody in small business owner takes out all the loan that they can, like there's an economic repercussion to this. So we really need to be mindful of the big picture here, and just this is if needed for your business for sure. But this is what is available.
Yeah. I have an example of that. I have clients who are doing okay because part of their businesses are online. I do have clients who install graphics outside, so their business is now completely halted. So they have no choice, but they still want to help their employees. So for them, they could do the PPP if they have high payroll. They can do SBA loans, but they have to keep paying people for staying home, basically.
Yep. And look, if your employees aren't able to do the maximum amount of work that they were doing before, have them take home study courses, let them like educate themselves, give them training and resources to like become a better coach, a better trainer, a better admin, whatever that is, give them courses to take. You can have them work on different projects and stuff. So just because they're not working maybe as a coach or in whatever capacity they were doing, you can still give them things to do. If you're going to be paying them, like let them earn their pay still and be responsible, and that's good for the whole business. So
yeah, for sure. Okay, what else do we have here? So this is the Section 139 option that we do have available for employees. This is something that has always been, well, not always, it's been available since September 11th, 2011 or 2001, right? When that disaster happened. We haven't heard a lot about it, but it's still available. So this is something that you can help your employees. It is deductible to you and not taxable to them. I mean, that's like the best of both worlds and doesn't happen very often, okay? So you can cover disaster-related expenses for your employees, and you get to write it off and they don't have to claim it as income. So if they have if they get sick and they have out-of-pocket medical costs, you can cover those for them. So if they get tested and their insurance isn't covering it or whatever those things may be, you can cover that for them and not put it on a W-2. Normally you would have to put that kind of thing on a W-2. You don't have to now. So over-the-counter medications, hand sanitizers, God forbid there's a funeral cost. You can help with that kind of thing. Those are the feel-good things that we like to do as business owners, right? When our employees are suffering, we want to help. This is how you can do that. So it's called Section 139. And again, I would recommend being very, very clear, like let your bookkeeper know that you're doing this and be very clear on your P&L that these expenses are for this purpose, because we want to be able to know that these are deductible to you and not taxable to your employee. People are now working from home. So if they need extra support in working from home, if they don't have a printer and that's part of their work and you buy them a printer, that's not taxable to them, it's still deductible to you. Same thing with childcare. You know, if you had somebody coming into your studio and working and their children were at school and now all of a sudden they have elementary age children that are home and they need somebody to come in and help while they're doing admin work for you still, or while they're doing their Zoom class from their living room, they need the kids out of the place. That's something that you can help them cover and that's not taxable to them and is deductible to you. So just be very clear about who you're paying, what you're paying. This is where I was getting ahead of myself a little bit. You also want to be very clear about how much you're willing to pay and for what purpose you're willing to pay it. You don't want to just say, oh yeah, I'm willing to give everybody $2,000. Maybe you're willing to give everybody $500 for childcare and $500 for medical expenses. You want to be really clear about that, because somebody will say, well, I don't have kids, so I should get $1,000 for medical expenses. It doesn't have to be that way. You just have to be very clear what your policy is and get it written and documented. Alicia, I saw you had a question.
Well, actually, my internet froze up for a second. I just wanted to make sure that everybody was hearing you.
Okay.
Hopefully that came across well to everybody. Sorry about that.
That's okay. And then just the other thing that's not covered, if an insurance company is going to reimburse an expense, you can't pay for it first and then get it reimbursed, and they get, basically your employee would get double the income then. That wouldn't be not taxable to them. So don't cover those kind of things for them. But this is available to you, and this is, like I said, has been available for 11 or 20 years now almost. So just another thing that we're not hearing about because it's not brand new. It's not in the CARES Act. We don't have to dive into that and figure it out. We've already figured it out. So this is available. as well. Hopefully it doesn't come into play too much. Okay, so layoffs and these stimulus checks. We've heard about the stimulus checks. We've already talked about, like, we can't do anything to get them faster, just be patient. Unemployment is available to self-employed people at this point, up to the $600. We talked about the extended periods and the softened requirements. It's true for your employees as well. You also, because it's been declared a national emergency or national disaster, you can take money out of your retirement account. Normally, you get hit with a 10% penalty for that. You do not in this situation if you claim, if you be sure to mark it that you're taking it because it's a national disaster. You're still going to pay taxes on it. Like, you're not going to get out of that piece of it if it's taxable. And again, there's long-term repercussions. Then you don't have this for retirement, you know? So again, I would say last resort, but you can do it without paying the 10% penalty. And then those stimulus checks are going to be mailed and or automatically deposited. So if you have filed your 2019 tax return, they will be deposited into the same account that you had a refund deposited into if you got a refund. And again, those are the limits there, that $99,000 for singles, $198,000 for married. Kind of talked about how you might hold your 2019 taxes. And then there's some fine print there that if 2020 numbers, so at the end of this year, in a year from now, if you get over that 198 or 99, you may need to pay part of that back. So just some things.
I want to make a comment on this. So right now there is no guidance that says you will have to pay it back if you make a ton of money in 2020. But it doesn't mean that there won't be. It's this law is a live organism, so it evolves. And the reason it evolves is that the 900 pages are written in the legal language, and it takes tax law experts to interpret it. And when you start interpreting the tax law, things come out that you didn't expect. So then there needs to be clarification, there needs to be other things. So that's why nobody knows the clear picture yet on certain things. So it's not just me. I'm making my best educated guesses on certain things. I'm taking positions that are not risky. I'm generally very conservative. But I can advise, like, my clients, this is what you should, let's wait. This is what you should do. This is what you can be eligible for, kind of thing.
Yeah. And that's why we said at the beginning, you know, we don't know your whole tax story. In fact, we don't know much of your tax story. Everybody's tax story is a little bit different. We know that you're business owners because you're here, so we can talk about business pieces of it, but there could be a lot of other things going on your tax returns that we have no idea about. So you really need to get with your tax person and go through this. I've watched 3 webinars now over the last 24 hours, and this is what most people are saying. There are little pieces that are different here and there, and so it's just really important that you have somebody on your side and you agree with them. Take them this information, ask them the questions, go in educated. And then, you know, hopefully you trust that person or get somebody that you do trust. Let's see, I think that's the last slide. So I did put links for both of us up here. So this is Tatiana's link. She has a page that has all of these links and resources on it. So you can go to that page. I believe you can subscribe there to get updates from her as well. And then I have a Facebook group. It's called Profit First for Fitness Business Owners. This is the link to that group. The slides are already there, and we can continue having this kind of conversation in that group as well. So just that's how you can keep up with either one of us, reach out to either one of us through those means. And then I know there's other questions. Do you want me, Alicia, to go through the ones that I wrote down and have answers to? I think we covered most of them.
I think we did cover most of them. Yeah, if you want to just go through the ones that we didn't address yet. And I know a bunch came in, and I know, Tatiana, you were answering rapid fire on the side. So if you guys just want to go through, Shannon, the ones that we had submitted before the call. And then Tatiana, are you okay to go through? Actually, I know you only have 30 minutes. Is it okay if you go through the ones on the side and just like rapid fire them up before?
The one in the chat, the ones in the chat, or the ones in the email?
We can go through all of them, actually. Why don't we do the ones from the email first? I do have access to those. I can read them out.
I have them.
Okay.
So I have a couple, maybe around 10. Erin asks, if an employee decides to quit before June 15th, does that count against you? So the rule is, there's no specific guidance to that, but the rule is that in the 8 weeks after your loan is approved, you cannot reduce your workforce, or you cannot reduce the amount you're paying your employees by more than 25%. So one employee quitting can be okay if their salary is less than 25% of the total compensation. Second question from Erin: do you pay your employees for the time they're working currently, or what they would have worked if we were open? So I would say, this is a judgment call. So I would say that, and there was a question in the chat about part-time versus full-time, so I'll kind of answer both at the same time. So I would say that as of today, let's say you decide to apply for this loan in a week. My commercial banker said that it's going to take banks at least 2 weeks to establish application process for the PPP loans. So let's say you decide to apply next week for this loan. You're currently paying employees $100,000 based on what they're working, how they're working now, based on their hours now. That becomes your baseline. Then once you apply for the loan, that baseline doesn't change. And if you have deviations down from the baseline, so if you start paying less, I would say, this is again my educated guess, you would need to monitor the 25%. But otherwise, I would keep the same baseline of hours that people are working now, that you are all remote.
And Tatiana, the big thing is, if you drop below 25%, then the portion you drop below will not be forgiven, is what happens.
Correct.
You become a loan at that point, and you'd have to.
So it does. So it's not. Yeah. So it's not the end of the world. It just becomes a loan. But who wants another loan, right?
But some of it could still be forgiven, I guess, is what I'm saying. It's not like you give up all of your ability to forgive a loan.
Correct. Yeah. All right, Jeff is asking decision matrix between, and then it's a good question, decision matrix between PPP, SBA Express, SBA 7A, and looking at near-term cash position protection versus longer-term operating expenses to take advantage of current rates, terms, and any trade-offs in which route to pursue. So he's asking about my recommendation. That's something that I've shared in my webinar yesterday. And I did mention, I think, this in the beginning. I would be strategic about these loan applications. Some businesses don't have the luxury to be super strategic because of the times that we're in. But let's say you can be strategic. Let's say you are in that evaluation phase of the curve. I'll give you an example from my client. So my client sells very specific niche clothing. It's a niche clothing brand. He has some debt, which he reduced by about $500,000 over 3 years due to profit first. So it's very powerful. That debt is in the form of a bank loan plus a bank line of credit. The bank loan, actually both of them are around 7% of interest per year. And the amount is about $500,000 combined loan. So on $500,000, let's be specific, that's $35,000 in interest a year. And the 4% that the SBA loan has is almost half of that. So what I would tell him, I actually did tell him, and I'm speaking with him again today, that SBA loan may be a better option for you because you may be able to consolidate all that debt into this one loan, and the loan term is 30 years. So that yields a very low monthly payment. I mean, if you have the extra money, you can pay it off quicker, but you will have an option of giving yourself and your business time to recover. Now, if you care, and I have clients who have that situation, they really care for the employees. They want to help them somehow, but they also want the deduction for that help. So they would, and they know that their business, let's say, will recover in 8 to 10 weeks. They would take out the PPP loan because it's a good option. It's possibly a grant, which is amazing, free money for everybody. Also, the portion that's forgiven, the interest on that portion is also forgiven. So interest that you've paid in the 2 months on this loan, if you paid anything, could be forgiven, or just in the long run could be forgiven. So that's what my recommendation is. So I wouldn't necessarily, I'm not advising people to apply for both. Maybe this will change as the law gets more interpretations from the tax experts, from the tax law experts rather. But right now, this is the recommendation that I'm going with. And you know what, I was supposed to cover the part-time versus full-time, but I kind of skipped that. So I'll come back to it. All the salaries and stuff that you pay are based on the full-time equivalent. So if you have two part-timers, one works 10 hours a week, another works 27 hours a week, at 37.5, you have one full-time equivalent employee. So yes, they're two people, but they're almost like one. So basically you have to make that judgment call, kind of count their average hours if they work, if their hours fluctuate during a typical month. I think the rule was, I saw something about 2 weeks. So take their average hours for the last 2 weeks and kind of divide it in half, and that's how you'll get their average hours. Any questions or clarifications so far from Shannon, Alicia?
No.
Okay. So next one is Amy. The 10K advance from the EIDL is essentially she's asking if it's essentially a grant. When you apply for the SBA loan, and that 10,000, by the way, is only through the SBA loans. When you apply for that, you can request this 10,000, and if your application gets denied, you keep the 10,000 and it's a gift to you. If your application gets accepted and you get the SBA loan, that 10,000 is folded into your loan proceeds. I hope that makes sense. Close the door, please. All right, Heather, sorry about that. My kids are obviously also home. All right, so Heather has a second question. The info I saw talked about payroll tax credit, but not assistance with the actual payroll. What kind of documentation will be needed for forgiveness? So for the PPP loan forgiveness, that's really the only option that we have now. You will need to show, the actual law says, cancel checks for rent, payroll records, proof that you've paid people. So that would be handled by your payroll company. And basically that's it. So assistance with payroll comes from the PPP loan. Otherwise, if we're talking about the sick leave, sick pay for people, that would be done through payroll credit, but you're required to do it anyway. So you just, there's no documentation requirement on that, but I suggest keeping some sort of a doctor's note on that. Third question from Heather, as a small boutique studio, what is our all-around best course of action in regards to trying to collect full, partial, or no membership payments? You know what, I actually was in training with the mastery members at Profit First, and a couple of days ago, and Mike shared this this graph, which I'll show you. It's going to be much quicker. It applies to lenders and borrowers. That's kind of what he referred to, but sorry, I'm just going to make sure that you guys see it. Can you see it?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So this curve is when you originate the debt. This is basically the importance or top of mind of that debt to the in the borrower's mind, or in your case, your clients, your members. And this is in the lender's mind, so your mind, basically, as a business owner. And the goal is to, you know, here, the borrower is more concerned about paying you back than you are concerned about them paying you back or paying you for the membership. And as long as we're before this, the point, you know, this intersection, this equilibrium, it's not really equilibrium in this case, but as long as we're on this side, on the, from your perspective, it's going to be the left side, I guess.
Yep.
As long as you're in this section, the borrower is more concerned about paying you. Once you cross over, you are more concerned about that. They're less concerned. So the goal is to keep your members or your borrowers or whatever on this side. So what he suggested doing, which I really liked, and I'm going to use that tactic with my clients when I advise them, he suggested reaching out to folks, to people who owe you money and saying, well, can you pay me this? When can you pay me this? They'll tell you, oh, I can't pay you anything, or I can't pay you right now. Your next question would be, how much can you pay me this week? Or how much can you pay me today? And then doing this regularly, so reaching out to them, gentle nudge, you know, kind of regularly, like let's say every week or every couple of days or whatever you feel is appropriate for your members or your clients. Even if they tell you, I can pay you $5 today, take the $5. Reach out to them again next week. How much can you pay me this week? Another $5. Okay, I'll take that. And that's how you kind of keep it in on that left side of the graph.
Yeah, can I just jump in here too, Tatiana? Like, what I'm saying to my clients in the fitness industry specifically is you are providing huge value for your members right now. Even if you're moving online, you are providing huge value. They need the mental relief. They need the physical relief of being in your community. So really amp up your community, amp up your engagement as much as you possibly can. And Alicia's been helping you do this phenomenally, right? And you guys have all been doing it. I'm seeing that. That's what I'm seeing on Facebook. So you're still providing value. There's no reason you should pause, cancel, put anybody on hold at this point right now. I mean, you know, if they completely lost their job, we can talk about sponsorships. We can talk about scholarships for people. We can talk about putting them on hold for a brief period of time. But I'm saying we're going to do this month by month because we don't know how long this is going to go, right? We don't know how long they're going to be out of a job. I mean, if they're in the service industry, they're out of a job right now. So maybe we say, okay, how much can you pay us this month? And we're going to give you a 12-month contract. Then that's what I'm doing for a lot of my clients. And I'm going to give you a 12-month contract and you're going to make up the difference over the next 10 months or however long it is. We just evaluate it month by month. So again, constant communication, constant engagement and giving them value. And remember, you're not selling a yoga class, you're not selling a gym class, you're selling a result, right? And they're still getting the result of working out and feeling good about themselves. Your value did not go anywhere when you closed.
Sure. And honestly, this could be an entirely different training on memberships and scholarships and partial scholarships and whatnot. And I'm even shifting with my coaching clients the conversation from results, even though results are incredibly important and they'll always be important, but now it's community and connection, it's mental health. So we need to be constantly reminding our community of that. And then in the coronavirus resource page, there are scholarship agreements that you can use as a swipe. And you just have to be authentic to you and your message. And you know what, I'll address this, and I did address this too in the revenue training, but let's move on and keep this as far as like accountability, like accountant stuff and the loan, but we can talk about that over in the FBFF group and things that are going to be most relevant to your members.
Okay, should I continue with the questions?
Yes.
Leah is asking, how do I get unemployment as a self-employed person? So someone already also asked that in the chat, so I'm going to just tell you. So the unemployment provisions or the unemployment requirements have been suspended in the sense that now the self-employed folks can apply for unemployment as well. So you will be able to do that. Jim is asking, you have to keep employees in the books for 8 weeks to have the loan turn into a grant. Yes. So again, that 25% decrease in both the number of people and the amount that you're paying them have to be kind of, you have to be aware of them to turn it into a grant. What about any 1099 employees who work part-time? Do they need to be kept on the books also? So I would say, again, this is a judgment call. I would say that if you included your independent contractors in your calculation when you apply for the loan, for the PPP loan, I would say that you should keep them on the books as well. If they were part-time, take their average hours for the past 2 weeks, or let's say for the past year. If you feel like last 2 weeks are not helpful, in a sense that it doesn't really give you the accurate picture of how this person works for you, I would say that you would probably have to keep them on the books as well. But those portions that you pay people will also be possibly turned into a grant, so free money. Next one, Jim is also asking, employees who already filed, do we need to put them back on the books? And if so, when after we get the money from SBA? All right, so if the employee has already filed for the unemployment, I think the best course of action is to let them stay there unless you have work for them. Because when you apply for the loan, they will already have been on unemployment, so they're not on your payroll anymore. Plus, this loan specifically is not SBA. I mean, it is backed by SBA, but it's not, it's the one that we apply for through the banks, the PPP one. Also, Jim's last question was, what information is needed to show proof of salaries and expenses? So like I said, I would probably go with like a non-negotiable, you know, when you process payroll and it's direct deposit, but the employees get the pay stubs, non-negotiable pay stubs. That's what I would use for those weeks that you've been paying them. And also be cognizant of that date, the end date of that 8-week period. I would recommend, like, if you know that you owe your employees, run that payroll a little early so that you are, the date of payroll is within the 8 weeks. Just be conscious of that. And the last question was from Erin in the email that you guys sent. Does it cover owner's pay? So I would say that it would depend on the type of entity that you have. LLC, single member LLC, that's on your Schedule C or sole proprietorship. My opinion is that it would count because it's subject to self-employment tax. I also told someone in the chat that partnerships, I would take the same position if the partners are general partners, not limited partners. So if you have 3 partners in your business and you don't take salaries because partners cannot get on payroll, I would make a claim that this should count as partners' salaries, the distributions, because you pay 100% self-employment tax on that, so it makes sense. But again, this is my opinion. All right, how do I proceed from here?
We can go through the top of the chat. And I'm not sure what you answered and what you didn't answer. If you want to just kind of scan through and address anything maybe you didn't answer.
Can I maybe like go backwards? So like from the end of the chat, this way I will see the answers that I've already posted, so I won't.
Whatever's easier for you, absolutely.
Okay, so Lisa just asked, what's the latest date to withdraw from investment and not have the 10% penalty? I believe it was extended for 2020 and 2021. Definitely 2020. So there is a special section that was created for COVID-19 relief. But just keep in mind that you're still paying the income tax if it was a traditional IRA. And here's the thing, this is something that a lot of folks don't know. Most of you will probably have the IRAs, either SEP, Simple, or whatever the plan is. But if for some reason you have a larger facility or whatever, you have a 401k plan, your employees cannot withdraw from a 401k plan with this, like the rules are completely different for 401k withdrawals and IRA withdrawals. So just be careful about advising them to withdraw money from those. So if you have a 401k plan or a profit share that you have for your business, this 10% abatement of the penalty or 10% suspension of the penalty may not apply to that. Because for example, the medical emergency expenses or whatever, 10% exclusion does not apply to 401k plans, but it does apply to the IRA plans. All right, Karina is asking, I read about,
really quick.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about like retirement plans and debt in general, right? Tatiana and I have both now shared 2 different things from Mike, and I'm going to do a 3rd one from Mike. He also told us gave us this whole framework for decision making, and it's the 10-10-10 framework. How are you going to feel about this decision 10 minutes from now? How are you going to feel about it 10 weeks or 10 months from now? And how are you going to feel about it 10 years from now? And I just encourage you all, as you're determining which course you want to take here, with all of these options that we're giving you. You know, do you want to do PPP? Do you want to do the loan? Do you want to do the forgiveness? Do you want to pull out of your IRA? Whatever it is, how are you going to feel in 10 minutes? All of you probably are going to have this big happy face in 10 minutes, right? Because we're all looking for money right now. That's just that's the phase we're in of this whole scenario. How are you going to feel 10 weeks, 10 months from now? Like that's a little bit longer term out. Hopefully both of those situations, we're back open and our doors are open and we're having regular revenue again, right? Or we're growing again from this whole pandemic and situation that we're in. So what will that feel like for you short term, midterm? And then 10 years from now, like that's when these loans are all going to be over and maybe not over. The loan won't be over for 30 years, but the short term one could be over in 10 years. how is that going to feel? Are you going to be looking back on this and being like, damn it, why did I pull money out of my IRA? Now I can't retire when I wanted to. So just really think about those 3 different time periods and how you're going to feel about these decisions. Really step back and get out of the 10-minute short-term, I need relief mindset when you're making these decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. Should I go on?
Yeah, I don't have the questions, so please.
Okay. All right. You know what? I kind of lost track of what I was answering. So I'm just going to
You're
go
right,
to the top
Karina.
of the chat. All right. Let's see. It's, what happens? Okay. So that I've kind of already covered. So Karen asks, what did my clients fill out that it took so long? So the SBA loan application is fairly involved. You have to attach several years of tax returns, several years. You also have to attach your reports for the P&L and balance sheet. Also, it's asking for the business plan. So that probably what took them so long. You have to be specific, like I said. You have to describe what the money is for, what your plan is, whom you planning to hire, all of that. So that's probably why it took them so long. Also, my client said, and this is something that may be helpful to you guys, that the process of creating 2-year projections, so you have to basically take your P&L, export it to Excel from QuickBooks, for example, wipe out all the numbers and create numbers as you see happening this year and 2021. So she said when she went through this process, it was actually eye-opening for her. She said, that kind of helped me set my goals and kind of be more clear as to where I'm going with the business and everything else. So just, I thought this would be helpful for you. Sarah asked early on, if we complete the 5 to 10 minute form and then the 10K immediate grant is given to you and not complete the rest of the application, if 10K is enough to float us, I don't know what will happen right now. There is no specific instructions on that, so I can't really answer that. I don't know if the 10K, Deborah asked if the 10K is enough as, you know, can you just apply on its own? I don't believe so. I believe it's part of the applying for the SBA loan, but I don't know for a fact. So it may have changed. I saw an email come through just like not last night saying that the EIDL, that's what it's called, applications are available. I don't know if those will be, if they will force you later to complete the whole application. I don't know that yet.
Hey, Tatiana, since we're talking about applications, do you know how long we have to apply for these disaster loans?
June 30th, I believe, is the last day or something.
And that's as of right now. Like those things, I think, as this whole thing, we're not over it, right? So I think,
yeah,
to be seen.
Yeah, and someone asked me yesterday, so I don't need to rush and apply because the government's going to run out of money to give me? No, you don't. So basically what happened was they've passed this new legislation. The government will issue bonds to raise funds, but also the Federal Reserve, so the big bank of the United States, will issue money. They'll print money to give to you. So, okay, some of these questions are already answered. Line of credit. Okay, so Jennifer asked, this is a good question in the sense that I didn't address it yet. So 3-4 weeks ago, I secured a $30,000 line of credit at 4% just in case. Can I still apply for the PPP loan even if I have a line of credit in place? You absolutely can, and you absolutely should if that applies to you. Okay, let's see. Expenses. What's the interest on PPP loan is 4%. So the PPP loan, so here's the reason that there's a factor of 2.5 of the average payroll. Makes a lot of sense. I actually was thinking about it last night. So you take your average monthly payroll, let's say it's $50,000, and you multiply it by 2.5, so 125,000. That's your maximum loan amount for the PPP, right? So for the next 8 weeks, you have to, whatever money you spend on those expenses will become grant, basically. So it makes sense. The 8 weeks is basically roughly 2 months. So the factor of 2.5 is giving you just a little bit more. Let's see, what else? What if your expenses change during the next 2 months? So the good thing is that only the money that you've spent on rent, utilities, and payroll will convert into a grant. The rest would just be a loan, and if there's little portion left, you will just pay it back, and it's a very good interest rate, so very good conditions in terms of it being a loan. You can never get this kind of loan otherwise in the normal circumstances.
Well, and I'll just jump in here from a cash flow management standpoint, which is what Profit First is all about. I don't care what loan you get, I would open up a separate account for it and let it sit in a separate account and make sure you're only paying those things that can be forgiven from it first. And then you see at the end how much you have left. And if you don't need that for anything else, you pay it right off. There's no prepayment penalty on any of these things. So if you still have $5,000 left at the end that you didn't need for some reason, pay it off. If it's not going to be forgiven, at least then you'll know, like, hey, this isn't going to be forgiven. It's going to become a loan and it's $5,000. And you can make that decision at that point because it's very clear to you how much is left in that account. So that's just one of those Profit First pieces. When in doubt, open an account. That's a place to definitely open an account with that money.
Absolutely. And some professionals, I saw some chatter on Facebook, a couple of professionals were talking about, applying for both loans. Like I said, I don't necessarily recommend that. I don't know enough to recommend that, but some of them are making a little bit more aggressive, taking a little bit more aggressive positions. But my suggestion was that if you do decide to apply for both, and let's say you find a different reason for the SBA loan application than the PPP, so like your PPP application would be to cover my payroll, my rent, and etc. Your SBA loan would be to substitute the revenue loss or whatever. So those would be two different reasons. I would open two accounts because you cannot use, let's say, SBA loan for payroll directly. You could transfer money into your main account possibly, but I wouldn't recommend commingling those funds just to be sure that there won't be any repercussions after. That makes sense.
Makes perfect sense.
All right, let's see what else. Some employees. So SBA loan, the one with the 30-year, in that blue table, it's on the right, that doesn't have any forgiveness attached to it at all. So it's a pure loan. It's just good quality loan, if you may. It's 30 years, 3.75%. That's pretty good. All right, let's see who else. If we're closed longer than 8 weeks. So if you're closed, okay, so Janae asked, if we get PPP and we're closed longer than 8 weeks and the money runs out, can your employees go back for unemployment? Yes, absolutely. And you should encourage them to do so. In New York, I don't know about Florida, but in New York, the first week that you apply for unemployment, you don't get paid. So let's say if you know in the last week of the 8-week period, you know that you're running out of money and you have to let people go until this is over, I would encourage them to apply on like Friday afternoon or something like that, so that the first week the clock starts ticking on that day for the week.
And this is another place where I would highly encourage you to talk to an accountant in your state. Unemployment laws are state by state. And so Indiana used to have a wait week like that, but they have, that's one of the things they've waived in this situation we're in right now. So there is no wait week in Indiana. So that wouldn't apply, but you just really have to be very familiar with the unemployment situation in your state. So like I'm in Indiana, Tatiana's in New York. We know people. If you don't know somebody in your state, let me know. I can hook you up with somebody in your state that can help you figure out unemployment laws. But it's really, I've just realized that's one of the things I've realized in this situation. It's easier to figure out the stuff in your own state and then share it out than it is to figure out all 50 states. So get with somebody in your state to figure that out.
Yep. All right, let's see. I think Fitness Mogul is asking for the PPP, if you know you're only going to need, let's say, 50,000 and not 100,000 that you would be eligible for, can you just apply for less than 100,000, or do you need to take the entire 100,000 K? So the short answer is you don't have to apply for 100,000. but I would probably recommend applying for 100,000. If you have 50 grand left in 8 weeks, pay it back. But you will have that safety net for yourself just to make sure that your business bounces back and you will go back to normal. All right, let's see. I'm still operating. Camille is asking, I'm still operating online with only a small reduction in revenue and paying employee and 2 1099 people for the hours worked. My 1099's pay is slightly lower than usual. Can I still apply for the PPP loan, and should I? I think you should. If it's going to be forgiven, why not? If you're going to use that money to pay people, it's basically free for you, free for them, and the government picks up the tab. That's what I would say.
Can you explain that good faith clause? You have to sign off in good faith that you need the money. Is that, did I read that correct?
I believe so. I think it's for the SBA loan. I don't recall seeing anything on the PPP. I do have an analysis from someone, from a tax law expert, but I didn't see the PPP loan having that clause. But SBA, you have to basically, under penalty of perjury, say that you need the loan.
Got it. But not for the PPP.
And the thing is, correct. I did not see the PPP clause yet, but it doesn't mean it's not going to come up. But as soon as the application is available at the banks, you will be able, they'll figure it out quick because they have a team of lawyers who will analyze and scrutinize every little thing in that law.
Got it.
Tatiana, I'm seeing a bunch of questions closer to the end about like unemployment, and do I go for unemployment? Do I go for PPP first? Talking about as the business owner themselves. What are your thoughts on that?
So someone asked in the chat and I responded, someone asked if I'm keep paying my employees, but I myself as an LLC, whatever, I think it was an LLC because that's the only way that would make sense, go for unemployment. I would say I did tell the person that yes, you can. My concern would be, so you go for unemployment, the reasonable question that a government would ask, let's say if you ever get audited, who was operating the business? Yes, your employees were working, you were paying them. Who was cutting the checks? Who was bringing in sales? Or if you were not working, if you were unemployed, who was doing the work? Yeah. So if you have a manager who is picking up the duties and you sit home and do nothing, then it would be a reasonable explanation. But actually that wouldn't be the IRS, it would be the Department of Labor. But yeah.
Not an audit I want to get in the middle of, really.
That's right. All right, so someone just asked, an LLC with no employees, have taken owner draw, would need less than 10K. Should I consider the SBA or PPP? SBA would probably be too cumbersome for you. I mean, not just for you, it is complicated as it is. If you can apply for the emergency loan and maybe in a couple of days, it will become clear that maybe you don't need to complete the rest of the application, I would say go for it. The PPP is a great option because it's free money. So I would say PPP would be an option for you, Kevin, but if we see in the next day or two, and here's the thing, so I monitor this stuff all the time. I also have kind of a list that I email people as soon as I know something. So if you want to get on the list, you're welcome to. But basically, if it becomes clear that this $10,000 emergency fund is available and you don't need to complete the SBA, then go for it. Another thing that you may consider, there are a couple of companies that are doing business grants. There are a couple of local entities, like New York City has a grant for New York City affected businesses. New York State does not. So I'm in New York State. I'm not eligible, but my New York City clients are. Same thing, there's a San Diego one. There are a couple of cities that are doing that. There's also Facebook grant program or whatever. And there is a Amazon and something else, I can't remember. So all of those links are on my COVID response page, so you can get that information and find and see if you can get just grants. And that'd be great too. All right, so Jamie is asking, I was planning on filing bankruptcy personal chapter 13 due to no income coming in. Would this negatively impact me applying for PPP or SBA loan? Definitely will affect your SBA loan application because there is collateral, potential collateral, and a personal guarantee clause. But in terms of PPP, bankruptcy is the last thing that you may want to think about doing, right? I think Shannon would probably agree with me.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I would try the PPP route first. As far as I'm concerned, you don't have anything to lose with the PPP, if that's really where you feel like you're at.
Yeah, I probably, bankruptcy has so many repercussions for years to come that I would probably go for a loan before I would go for bankruptcy. All right, I think it's 12:02, so I do have another webinar that I have to jump on.
Thank you so much, Tatiana. And Shannon, we'll probably stay on for a few extra minutes, Shannon, but Tatiana, thank you so much for sharing all this expertise and for the slides and contributing and giving back. And so if anybody wants to get on your list, which I'm sure everybody here wants to get on your list, it's that top link right on the slide right there. You can go, that's her website, and then subscribe to her email list where you'll get all the updates from there. So thank you so much, Tatiana. Truly appreciate you.
Sure. It's my pleasure. I just hope it's to give people more clarity and more confidence in tomorrow, and that's really it.
Exactly. Day at a time. One day at a time right now.
That's right.
So thank you again. And we'll stay on for a couple more minutes and answer any last questions that you have with Shannon. So thank you again.
Bye, everyone.
All right. So was there any questions? I know we kind of went in a weird order, but were there any questions that were not answered? If you want to just type them again in the chat, we'll stay on for a couple more minutes with Shannon to answer any last questions that you guys have. And can you unshare the screen?
Yeah, I didn't realize I was shared, sorry.
No, you're good, you're good. Hi, everybody.
I was going to say, you guys, I was in the Facebook group and looking at the comments, and somebody said, where can I go to find more information? Because Google search is like, there was a really funny GIF. And I agree, my head was swimming yesterday right along with all of you. I mean, it is so much to digest. So Tatiana's link is her stuff. If you want to go straight to the source, I feel like the very best government source is the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Mm-hmm. So that's, don't just Google anything. Google U.S. Chamber of Commerce and then go to their site and see what they're saying. That's a little bit digestible because it's the Chamber of Commerce, right? And they're supposed to be giving information to business owners. So it's not like you're reading the 900-page law. So that was the only other thing that that GIF just really made me laugh last night too, because I was right there with you all, like running around Google trying to find the right stuff. So.
Got it. And then action item for all of you guys, PPP is through the local bank. That's what you said, correct?
Correct. Yep. So
okay.
Call your commercial banker
yes.
and just get on their list.
That is like first action step. Call your local bank, get on the list. Credit unions, obviously that counts. I saw that question earlier. That counts as a local bank.
It's anybody who normally, so the SBA, like you can apply directly through the SBA, but then they also have SBA backed banks. So if it's an SBA backed bank, they will have the application process. So it may not be all your credit unions. Some of them may be independent enough that they don't want to get involved, but just call and ask. They'll know if they do SBA loans.
Awesome. All right. Okay. We did have a couple questions come in. Can you comment on the extra unemployment benefit our workers will get? I'm under the belief that they'll get an additional $600 on top of what they're collecting.
So it really depends on your state. That's what I'm going to say, because some states are saying, nope, it's just the $600, and others it's sounding like it's going to be on top of. So I can't say more than get with somebody in your state.
Got it. If you have an LLC, oh, Kaylee has an LLC. Hi, Kaylee. If you don't have employees, which do you apply for? Looking to cover rent, utilities, and could consolidate higher loans, credit card, self-payroll.
Okay, so if you're going to consolidate other loans, you're going to want to go with the SBA loan. It could be a situation where you could do both. You know, if you have other loans that you want to consolidate, you could do the SBA for that, and then do the PPP for rent, utilities, and your own payroll through the LLC.
Karen asks, if our employees are already laid off, when Or do we bring them back in once we receive the PPP loan, even if we can't reopen?
Yeah, you have to. In order for it to be forgiven, you have to bring them back on and pay them, even if you can't reopen. And you're going to have to pay them at least 75% of what they were being paid before. That's the forgiveness part of the PPP loan.
What are the prerequisites for the SBA EIDL?
As far as I know, you just have to go and apply. It really sounds like anybody can get that. There are no prerequisites. That $10,000 is pretty. What we're not sure about yet is if you have to finish the rest of the application. And I've seen people on here saying, they gave me the $10,000 and I don't have to apply for anything else. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Are you going to still get a phone call? Because we don't know what the rest of that application process looks like. The SBA process, it used to be just long and arduous, and people would spend months in the process of getting this loan. So the SBA has been under a lot of pressure to speed that up. And so they've done that, but that means there's a whole ton of questions about what follows up after that. I can't tell you, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. All right, so a couple people are just still asking about what are the okay, so let's see here, the PPP and the SBA, should you not apply for both? That was the general recommendation from before.
That's the general recommendation, yeah, unless you have very distinct reasons, different distinct reasons.
Yep. Mia says, for the home office, to clarify, pay rent with your personal check and biz check, correct, if you're looking to get it forgiven.
So yeah, let's say, I'm just going to use easy numbers. Your rent's $1,000 and 25% of your total $1,000 space is your home office. You would want to pay 25%, so $250 with a business check, because that portion could be forgiven. The $750 75% space that you live out of needs to be paid personally because it's not going to get forgiven. Hopefully the example helps.
Makes sense. Okay. If I had a personal bankruptcy 6 years ago, am I still eligible for the SBA disaster loan?
You're probably not going to get it. I think it goes at least 7 years. That bankruptcy follows you for 7 years. Okay. I don't think that's true though of the emergency piece. I'm not really sure there. In my mind, it doesn't hurt to apply. If you really need the money, it doesn't hurt to apply.
So if she's planning on for the disaster loan, she should probably just go straight for PPP if she needs the cash. Karen says, what if an employee quits during the 8 weeks? Can we replace them with a new person to stay on with the guidelines? That's a good question.
That is a good question. I don't think we know yet. That's going to be my response. I'm sorry, I don't know. It would make sense to me that we could, but common sense doesn't always prevail. So
we'll write down any questions that we can't answer and do our best to post the answers in the group.
Yep, for sure.
Ryan says, on SBA, it asks for cost of goods sold and total revenue. Boot camp owner here. What do I put for cost of goods sold?
It's cost of goods sold. So boot camp owner, probably nothing. Now, if it said cost of services, cost of goods, cost of services would be payroll. Like that would be your direct payroll. So if you have a coach that only does that, and you can figure out the portion of any salary for delivering a class, that can be considered cost of sales, but it's not cost of goods sold. Cost of goods sold would be if you maintain any type of inventory in your location. So if you have any type of retail, cost of goods sold would be the cost of purchasing that. So if you pay $5 for a shirt and you turn around and sell it for 10, it's the $5 that you pay for that shirt.
Or if you're doing any kind of supplementation or anything like that. Yep. All right, Mia, if SBA is already applied, should we just go for the 10K instead of the PPP since the SBA is already applied? And did Tatiana mention that the 10K will be a gift if the SBA loan doesn't go through?
If the SBA loan is declined, this $10,000 is yours. Yes.
Dang.
That's how it works. That's how they say it works. I'm really cautious on this because I mean, like if everybody goes and takes $10,000 from the government, what long-term repercussions are we as citizens of the United States putting ourselves into there? So that's just my personal kind of hesitancy for everybody going and getting $10,000 from the government instead of the $600 that everybody's going to get anyways.
Right. And I'm just going to jump into, this is not really related to that, but for taxes, you have to still file by April 15th. If you owe money, you don't have to send that in. Is that correct?
It's actually
right now, it's just delayed.
Everything.
It's just delayed, but you still have to file, right? By April 15th, it's just.
No, they extended the filing deadline as well.
Oh, they did extend the filing deadline to is that the June 30th? What's that?
July 15th as well. Everything's July 15th now.
Oh, okay.
So at first, you're right. It was just the payment you had to file by April 15th. And then, like, I don't know, it was 3 days later or something, kind of really quietly, they extended the due date for tax returns as well to July 15th. But that's what Tatiana and I were talking about earlier. There's really no reason. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, you know, if you're sick and you literally can't get, or your accountant is sick and literally cannot get them filed, then take the extra time, but just get it over with.
Yes.
It's like ripping the Band-Aid off, right? Just do it.
Yes, don't drag it on. All right, Desiree says, if you have an admin that's 3 hours a week and one coach that is 20 hours a week at different rates, you have to combine to make one full-time employee. Can you explain that again?
So 20 hours and 3 hours would still not be a full-time employee because that's only 23 total hours. So no, you wouldn't need to combine those. Now, if you had two coaches who were each working 20 hours a week, then you would have one full-time equivalent employee. So you're still at a part-time person with two people working total of 23 hours.
Got it.
I want to go back to that question about, you know, if somebody quits and you replace them within 8 weeks, we're not, as far as I know with the PPP loan, there's no, like, you don't have to list the people who are working. You have to say, this is how much I've paid in payroll over 8 weeks time. So as long as that is 75% of the loan that you, of the payroll that you had prior, I think you'll be fine. And it should be, it wouldn't matter. So in that regard, like if you had somebody quit and you bumped somebody else up in time, you wouldn't even have to replace them with a new person. You could just say, hey, you know, Joe quit, Sam, I need you to step into Joe's role and I'm going to pay you more. As long as your total payroll is still 75% of what your baseline was, you should be fine.
Got it. That's a good point. Good way to look at it. All right. Jen says the PPP can be used for rent and utilities, but that's not taken into account when you apply. So if you have trainers that do not need to be paid, can you just use that to pay the rent and utilities?
You can, it won't be forgiven. That's the catch. In order for the loan to be forgiven, you have to meet that 75% of your baseline as payroll. So I mean, you can use it, but then it's a loan at that point. So somebody asked earlier, I think I saw like they're giving you 2.5 times your payroll, but then you're supposed to pay that over 2 months. So really you only have half of your payroll to get you through rent and utilities for this time. Yeah, that's what it comes down to.
David says, is there any difference in applying for the PPP if you're a sole proprietor and not an LLC or other business entity?
Not that we know of at this point, but there are no applications available for the PPC yet either. We don't know how banks are going to do that.
Got it. And Tatiana said, if she's denied for an SBA loan, does she still get the $10,000 as a gift?
Yes.
Okay. How do we get it declined? All right. Peter says, what does it mean if it gets declined?
It could be declined for a lot of different reasons, right? I mean, somebody asked about being bankrupt within the last 6 years, if you've shown a lot of losses, if they just don't think that it's a very viable, if they don't like your reason, that's why the loan process for SBA usually takes months, because you have to sign that good faith estimate or disclaimer, and you have to give them lots and lots of documentation. You have to have a personal guarantee and collateral on it. So if you don't have a collateral to put up, or if you already have a lot of debt that is collateralized somewhere else, if your equipment is used as collateral somewhere else and you don't have anything else to put up and you don't want to put up your house, which I strongly recommend not doing, you probably won't get a loan.
Can I just say first how much I love you guys? I mean, we're almost all of us coaches, fitness professionals, wellness business owners. Like, this is so far out of our scope. You guys are here, you're learning, you're asking really great questions. Like, this is amazing. I'm so proud of you guys. and awesome, funny questions I love it. Karina.
So I just saw one really quick from Janae that said, can we cancel our SBA loan application if we'd rather wait for PPP?
Yep.
What I have seen in other places, and this is a little bit different than what Tatiana was saying, but she's seen it too. People are saying if you apply for the SBA and you get like the $10,000, some people are saying that will reduce your PPP amount. So if let's say you're eligible for $100,000 through PPP, but you've already gotten the 10, then you'll only be able to get 90,000 from PPP. Now the 10,000 could still be forgiven within the PPP because you basically get front loaded that $10,000.
Makes sense.
So we just aren't sure how that's all going to play out yet, but that's a possibility.
Got it. I don't know if you guys can hear my dog. He's howling outside. Probably because I locked him out of the room. Okay. So I'm understanding this correctly, that payroll has to be at least 75% of the average over the past 12 months to be forgiven.
Yes.
Yes. Ryan, he was the one that was talking about the boot camp earlier, the cost of goods sold, is the only question. Is it asks for gross revenue, but nothing about other expenses.
I'm guessing there's going to be follow-up to this process. They're not going to approve you for your total amount based off of this application all by itself. First of all, they don't know what your total amount you're applying for. So there's going to be more questions about other expenses.
Okay.
You're going to have to submit P&Ls and or tax returns in order to get.
Shannon, can you put your group link in the chat so people can join it? Because Shannon's probably, I have to join your group too. Are you talking about, I'm sure you're talking about this all the time right now. And
yeah,
this is what people need help with. So Tatiana, join her email list, join Shannon's group. And that way, and also Shannon's in the FBFF group. So feel free to tag her. I just totally threw that out there. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
If they tag you in the group with questions?
As long as you tag me, I'll see it, yeah.
Okay, perfect. And just give her like 24 or 48 hours to get back to you because I'm sure she is slammed right now. All right, Tatiana. Thank you. Tatiana, I have 7 employees, but all working part-time, about 12 hours only. What's the best way for me to apply? Are her teaching classes, do they count as hours?
Yeah, your teaching hours. So the big thing, as I understand it, the big thing with number of employees is the only people who are eligible for the PPP are people who have under 500 employees. That's all of you. So the whole FTE thing doesn't really apply. Like, you're not concerned about how many people you have. You're just concerned about that average monthly payroll and maintaining 75% of it. Those are the big pieces for you. I wouldn't worry about how many people and even how many hours they're working. It's maintaining their payroll. I mean, you probably aren't having them work. Like Alicia said, we have to find things for these people to do to earn their keep, right? We're going to continue to pay them because we want to do good for them and we want them to be able to come back and continue working for us when we're up full time, right? So that's why we're trying to pay them this at least 75%, 100%, whatever it is you decide, but you have to maintain that 75% in order for it to be forgiven. If you decide you just want a loan to help pay these people, then, I mean, you could not have your PPP forgiven, pay everybody 50%. There's a lot of ways you could go about it. And that's where I don't want to get into a whole lot of details here because every single person is different. Every single business is different. Those are the parameters of the loan and the program.
All right. Emily's got a good question. Could you increase owner's comp to make up any payroll differential from employees not working the same number of hours or quitting?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Really good question.
That is a good question. I mean, ethically, I don't think that sounds right? Like, that's not the purpose of the program, to increase your own pay. And from my experience working with fitness pros, that's not what you want to do either. You want to keep your people around. You want to take care of them. So I just don't think that sounds right. I would rather see you put that keep that in your account and pay it back. If you truly don't need it, because for some reason your employees say, hey, no, I don't need paid, then just give it back. That would be mine.
And if they're quitting, Emily, I know you, I know your business. You take care of your members like nobody else. So I would bring an additional person on, because you said they have to have a certain, you have to have a certain amount of payroll to get forgiven. So bring somebody on to work part-time. There's a lot of people that need work right now. Have them reach out to your clients, over deliver. Let's be thinking of ways we can serve and go above and beyond to help our members feel connected. Maybe they're just running like a virtual social hour, or writing cards to all of your members, or whatever that looks like. Like, let's come up with creative ways to give back to our community, or just write random gratitude cards to people in your community that aren't even your members. If this money that's given to you from the government, let's employ people with the money that we have access to in our community and help give back.
Oh my God, Alicia, this is why I love you. That's awesome. And just on top of that, you know, if you don't have fabulous ideas, get your team together, you guys. Your teams are amazing and they're creative. And so brainstorm, have a social hour with your team and say, hey, what can we do to just get recognized in our community, right? Like Alicia was saying, you know, write notes to your emergency workers and your nurses and doctors, but let it come from your team too, because they're full of ideas that we as business owners are so in this right now. Sometimes it's hard to see what we could do for our community too.
Love it. All right. Peter says, I'm confused. Which do we apply for first? I have an LLC with private contractors.
My opinion is apply for the PPP first. That's my opinion. You have to make that choice. And again, like there are reasons, and I have advised clients to apply for the SBA first. But just in general, I'm going to say your first line of option should be the PPP.
Got it. All right. I thought even if you don't use the 10K on payroll, you could use it on rent and expenses and get forgiven as long as you meet the 75% payroll by June 30th.
That's correct.
Yep.
It's actually 75% in 8 weeks after you get the loan.
Yep.
So if you got the loan tomorrow, let's say, which you're not going to, but let's say you got it April 15th, that would be May 15th, June 15th. So you wouldn't even have till the end of June. It's 8 weeks. So just be aware. And that's what Tatiana was saying, be aware and cut that last payroll early so that you're not like messing with any deadlines.
Yep.
Because the last thing we would want to see is having to pay something back that you actually meant to have.
Yes.
For 75%.
100%. Tatiana said for PPP, we cannot apply yet.
That's correct. I mean, just the banks don't have applications ready yet, but hopefully that's what we were saying. First action item after this call is call your bank and get on their list so that they know you want that application as soon as it's available.
Yep. One of my clients
did hey, call back Monday, then call back Monday.
That's exactly right. One of my clients called their bank and they said Monday to follow up as soon as possible Monday morning because they think they'll have more information then. So I would do that right after this call. Get on and talk to your bank.
I know I had a client who works with Chase and they told them they're hoping it's a week, but they're thinking it's going to be more like 2 or 3 weeks. So like I said, just get in the process so that you know when to be following up. If you don't hear from them, follow up with them.
Mm-hmm. Can we apply for SBA now? And if denied, apply for PPP when it's available?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah, I don't know that you're going to get denied that fast. That's going to be the catch.
All right. Heather says, do you have direct links to the SBA form? Also, just to confirm, we should call it, call bank. We just talked about that, but links for the SBA, is that on?
I would go to Tatiana's resource page. She has them there.
Perfect. All right. John says, if we need to keep up 75%, what payroll was, how do we pay for rent and utilities?
Talk to your landlord and hopefully get some of that deferred. I mean, that's the whole process that we're all in. Like, hopefully you're maintaining revenue and so you can pay it from that because you don't maintaining some sort of revenue. But that's the catch that we're all in.
So watch the revenue training that I did last week or whenever it was. Watch the revenue training on keeping up your revenue. And I do believe this is a time for growth for us and a time that we can really truly impact our communities at a deeper level. And just because you're streaming online doesn't mean all of a sudden we become online coaches and start training people all over the world. You're still able to serve your local community online. That's where I would spend, if you are a local studio, that's where I would be spending the most of your time and energy, and bringing back in old clients that maybe have moved away. So definitely what you said about trying to get some kind of lease relief on that front, but also after this is over and during, this just reinforces how we need to have savings built up. And that's, I mean, the whole idea behind Profit First. And this is one of the reasons, like, I brought you in a couple years ago, because I think that, like, this needs to be a part of your financial plan, is to have this savings. So going forward, I know some of you are like Band-Aid, Band-Aid, Band-Aid right now, but really be thinking, what are the lessons that I'm learning right now? How can I protect myself if, God forbid, this ever happens again? Or you never know what's going to happen. You always just want to make sure you got that cushion, you got that safety net, so that you're not in a tough spot going forward.
Yeah, I can't echo that enough. I mean, obviously, right? This is what my whole business is based off of Profit First. And I've said for years, it's not if, it's when something hits the fan. And for years, I've said, you know, we have tornadoes in Nashville and Alabama, for God's sake. We have forest fires and flooding. Something's going to hit. I had no fucking clue it was going to be this. And it makes me sick to think that it is this, right? But it is this. And you guys, I have clients who are not panicked right now, who are making really good business decisions because they have 3 months of their own pay in their personal savings account, 3 months of their own pay sitting in their business savings account, and they have 3 months worth of operating expenses sitting in a business account. They have all faith that we're going to be through this in 3 months. And they're not going to use all of that savings in 3 months because they're continuing to generate revenue. So they are making really solid business decisions right now. They're changing, they're pivoting, they're seeing what's going on, and they're making changes. They have to, because they want to continue to have revenue. But they're not doing it from a place of fear. They're not in that desperation downward cycle. And that's all because of Profit First. So I cannot stress enough how much.
It's such a good book. So once you guys come out the other side of this, pick up Profit First, read it, reach out to Shannon if you have questions or need help getting set up with that system. So many of my clients use it and they are absolutely in love with it. So, all right. Leah says, I'm a private personal trainer and I have no employees. What kind of assistance can she get?
So you can still apply for PPP because it will cover your pay. So 75, you know, it covers 100% of your pay. We keep saying 75% is what you have to spend in order to get the forgiveness, but you can cover yourself 100%. And unemployment would be available after that too. So either way.
Got it. Emily said she hasn't had people quit. She's just worried about taking the loan, not having it be forgiven, and then ending up with more debt on the other side.
Well, and that's where I said, put that in a separate account and don't spend it. And then if it's not forgiven, you give it back.
Perfect. PPP is not available. You're right. Can we get Tatiana's resource? Yep. I'm going to post the page with all the resources. I'll do it straight to the SBA loan too. And all of the things that we talked about on the call today, I'll have on a Word doc for you guys, and I'll get that up hopefully by the end of the day.
Thank you.
How fast will the SBA give disaster grant that $10,000?
It's happening pretty quickly. I don't know exactly how fast, and I think it's going to be different for different people, you know, but I think it's happening quickly right
now. Okay. Karen says keeping revenue is a big challenge for my bigger, yeah, she's got a 24-hour facility. My training clients are on board. Regular gym goers are the challenge. Yep. Still struggling with that, figuring out. Okay. What's the fastest way to get the money? PPP or the 10,000?
I mean, people are getting that $10,000, like it's landing in bank accounts. So if you want to go that route and hope that that's denied and given it to you as a gift or taken out of the PPP, that's going to be the fastest way to get cash.
Yep.
Are you going to be happy with that 10 months from now? That's my question for you every single time.
That's such a great perspective and way to get out of the panic situation and making decisions out of like impulse versus really thinking about, hey, 10 weeks, 10 months, 10 years, what's in my best interest long term. I love that perspective. Okay, I think that's all the questions that came in. Are there any last questions before we get going? We have been on for 2 hours. Shannon, thank you so much for donating your time and sharing and doing the training earlier. That was absolutely amazing. And Shannon is in the group. So if you have questions, Shannon, do you have a book?
No.
That's Tatiana. No, that's Profit First book back there.
First is the book that I would recommend. That's not the first time one of us PFPs has been attributed to the book, though. So I appreciate that. Thank you much. It's Profit First. It's written by Mike Michalowicz, and you can find it on Amazon. If you have extra time, now's not a bad time to read it.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you again, Shannon, so much. I'll be posting this recording. I'll post the resources. You guys are absolutely amazing. Keep up the great work. We're here to support. If you have any questions, just let us know how we can help. And have an amazing rest of your day. Keep up all the incredible things that you guys are doing for your community. You guys are the best.
Thank you so much, Alicia. Take care.
Thank you, Shannon.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.